So in 1492, Columbus convinced the Spanish crown to fund his voyage to go west to find the riches of Asia. Of course, at that point, they didn't realize that two continents were in between the European continents and Asia when you travel west, which is North and South America. So Columbus goes, he explores the Caribbean islands, Hispaniola, a little bit of Cuba. When he returns from that trip and he arrives in Barcelona, Spain, he actually arrives to a cheering crowd, which is what you see here. This is an actual painting that I took a picture of when I was in Barcelona. And that is Columbus, who is receiving the blessings of the Spanish crown. You notice right behind him is Catholic priests. So along with him, conquistadors, he also took religion, Spanish priests. And that was another effect, changing the culture, including religion, name, language of the Native American tribe that he met, the Taino. And behind them, you see about 7 Native Americans who were brought from their land to the European land, in this particular case, Spain. And they were brought there as slaves to a certain extent. So again, here you see a picture of the crown giving Columbus his blessings, their blessings, and then the priests who, on the name of religion, they took the Native Americans and forced them to become slaves. They called their island San Salvador, Holy Savior, right? Changing the name. And then you see here the Native Americans being used as goods, as slaves. So eventually, with more conquistadors coming, Spanish conquistadors, and eventually English conquistadors, what becomes out of all this, it becomes known as the Columbian Exchange, which you see here. So goods that are being shipped back and forth from North America to Europe, to Africa, and back to the Americas. So the 3 major crops that come from North America are called the 3 sister crops. Those are corn, beans, and squash. There it is. Right? Those are called the 3 sister crops. Those crops actually increase the population of European population cities. It decimated Native American population, and eventually, over time, what happens is slaves are brought in from Africa into the Americas, and I do mean the Americas. You also see diseases that are being brought from the Americas as well. There were some goods that were introduced into the Americas. Some of the ones that you see here: peach, bananas. Cattle becomes a major one, and horses probably become the most important good that comes from the European countries into the Americas, because it changes the way Native American lives, and it changes the entire landscape as well, ecological effects. So the Columbian Exchange is one of these major effects that comes out of the exploration of the Here's another one, something called the encomienda system. Now, this is mainly for Spanish. So encomienda system. Here's what happened. What you see here on the left-hand side is an encomendador. He is kind of like the mayor of this particular little town, this community. So he's a Spaniard conquistador who comes here and he forces the Native Americans to work for the Spanish crown. And what are they working on? You see over here, crops for the most part. And of course, they're by the ocean, by the seas, to be able to ship those crops. You notice the Aztec temple collapse and a new church, Spanish church, is being imposed here, and this is the Catholic religion as well. And so the encomendador, he would get all this land in exchange for making sure that the Native Americans are converted into Catholicism, and making sure that he is making profit by forcing these Native Americans into slave labor. So that's another major effect that comes out of Spanish colonization, the encomienda system. And then here's another one. It's called a caste system. It is a system of social orders to a certain extent. So a peninsular, right off the top, if you were Spanish born and came to the Americas, you were considered a peninsular. If you were Spanish born and then you marry with a black, then you're considered a Creole. If you were Spanish and you mix with an Indian, then you're considered a mestizo. If you are a Spanish and you mix with a black, you're considered a mulatto. And then Native Americans and black slaves were at the very bottom of the system. So we see a social structure that actually develops as well. And because of that, we see some form of racism and social class systems that emerge because of colonization. And again, in part, the Columbian Exchange. So that's a little bit more of the effects of Spanish conquistadors. We'll leave it at that.